We're going to explain how to fix the A module cannot have multiple default exports error in React. This error happens when you accidentally try to export two or more things as the default export from a single JavaScript module. React, and JavaScript in general, only allows one default export per module. Remember, a default export is the primary thing you're exporting from a file, often the main component or function. You can identify it by the export default keyword. Let's look at how to solve this. Identify the culprit. First, pinpoint the exact file causing the problem. The error message usually tells you which file contains the multiple default exports. Open that file and carefully examine its contents. 2. Check for multiple export default statements. Look for instances of the export default keyword. If you find more than one, that's the source of your error. Remember, only one component, function, or value can be marked with export default. 3. Consolidate your exports. You have a few ways to solve this. The simplest solution is to combine your multiple default exports into a single one. For example, if you have export default component A and export default component B, you might create a single object containing both components and export that. Export default component A component B. In your importing file, you can access them as props component A and props component B. 4. Use named exports. Alternatively, instead of default exports, use named exports. Named exports let you export multiple things without conflict. To do this, replace export default component A with export const component A arrows, and repeat for other elements. In the file where you import, you'll now use about component A, component B from your module. This approach is generally preferred for better organization and clarity, making it easier to understand exactly what's being exported from each module. 5. Check for accidental re-exports. Another possibility is that you may be re-exporting a default export unintentionally. If you're using a third-party library or another component from another module, make sure you're not trying to export that default export again in your own file. Carefully review how you are exporting things from your module to identify any potential re-exports. 6. Clean up unused exports. Sometimes developers might have leftover unused default exports that inadvertently cause this error. Make sure you're only exporting things that are actually needed and used in other parts of your application. Remove any unnecessary export default statements to streamline your codebase. Remember to thoroughly check your code after making these changes. Once you've fixed the multiple default exports issue, the error should disappear, and your React application should compile and run correctly.